Consider this wall, solid, impenetrable, a definitive boundary. But every wall has a flaw, a point where pressure, applied with precision, can change everything. You move through a world of other minds, a complex, shifting lattice of intentions, perceptions, and decisions, and you operate under a fundamental assumption that your mind is your own, a private chamber, a command center from which you issue orders to your world. Your choices feel sovereign, your opinions your own, your actions the product of free will. This is the fortress mind, and it is an illusion, a necessary, beautiful, but ultimately fragile one. For centuries, philosophers from the Stoics to the Buddhists have whispered the truth, and modern cognitive science now shouts it. We are creatures of influence. We are porous. Our judgments are shaped by shortcuts, heuristics. Our beliefs are cemented by biases. Our actions are guided by invisible scripts. This documentary is not about hacking others in the crude sense. It is about understanding the architecture, seeing the levers and pulleys behind the curtain of consciousness. For to see them is to achieve two things: to navigate the social world with greater clarity, and to understand what within your own mind is truly you. We begin with a principle that turns conventional wisdom on its head, our first unseen lever. In a world that prizes invulnerability, the most powerful opening move is often a flaw, a controlled disclosure of weakness. This is the Benjamin Franklin effect, dressed in Stoic armor. The ancient Stoics knew that ego was the enemy of learning. Franklin, a practical philosopher himself, operationalized this. He would ask a political rival to lend him a rare book. The act of doing a favor forges a subtle bond. The rival's mind, to resolve the cognitive dissonance of helping someone they dislike, begins to reframe you. I must not dislike him so much, for I did him a kindness. But the deeper hack is ontological. By asking, you are not displaying weakness, you are displaying trust. You are implicitly stating, the hierarchy I propose is not of dominance, but of mutual exchange. You make them an investor in your story. Practical Insight 1. When seeking to build rapport or diffuse opposition, do not lead with strength, lead with a request for minor, meaningful assistance. Ask for their expertise, their perspective, their help. You are not diminishing your fortress, you are building a gate and handing them a key. But what happens after the gate is open? How do you shape what they find inside? The answer lies not in the present moment, but in the past they think they remember. We'll explore that right after this. The mind, for all its brilliance, is a terrible first witness. It does not perceive objectively, it perceives in relation. This is the anchoring bias. The first piece of information offered, the anchor, drags all subsequent judgment toward its weight. A price tag, a salary offer, an initial demand in a negotiation, it sets the territory of possibility. But the ancient hack goes beyond commerce. It is about framing reality itself. You can anchor expectations for performance, for difficulty, for emotion. This will be a challenging conversation, prepares the mind for strain, making measured responses seem like success. Let's just try a rough draft, liberates creativity from the anchor of perfection. The Stoic practice of premeditation malorum, the premeditation of evils, is the ultimate existential anchor. By mentally envisioning the worst realistic outcomes, you drop a heavy anchor of preparedness. When reality arrives, it is almost always lighter than that anchor, and thus you are not capsized by emotion. You have created a comparative calm. Practical insight 2. Before any high-stakes moment, consciously set the anchor. Define the scale first. Is this a catastrophe or a setback? A masterpiece or an experiment? You cannot stop the mind from using anchors, but you can choose which one it grasps. Yet anchors are static. They set a point, but human behavior is a river. How do you direct its current? The answer lies in a hidden need for coherence, a need so powerful it can build bridges or prisons. Pause here for a moment. In your own life, can you identify a recent decision you made that felt entirely free, entirely your own? Now look closer. Was there an anchor? A prior commitment? A subtle expectation you felt you had to meet? The goal is not judgment, it is observation. This is the principle of commitment and consistency. Once a person makes a choice or takes a stand, they encounter immense internal pressure to behave consistent with that commitment. It is a psychic domino effect. The mind seeks to resolve the dissonance between "I am a person who cares" and "I am refusing to help" by simply helping. The initial small commitment, the signature, set the identity cascade in motion. This is not merely social, it is personal. The stories you tell about yourself, "I'm bad with money," "I'm a procrastinator," are commitments. You will act consistently with them, even to your detriment. The hack is to plant a new, tiny, positive commitment. "I am a person who finishes what I start," can begin with making your bed. The cascade must start somewhere. But how do we frame these commitments? How do we present the dominoes? This leads to the architecture of choice itself. People do not choose between things, they choose between descriptions of things. A 90% survival rate is identical to a 10% mortality rate. Yet one frame attracts, the other repels. This is the framing effect, and it is the lens through which every reality is viewed. To frame effectively is to speak the listener's language of values. A tax is framed as a membership fee for civilization. A cost is an investment. You are not lying, you are translating the same fact into a different emotional and cognitive key. But what provides the power to these frames? Why do some words feel heavy and others light? The answer lies not in the logic of the cortex, but in the weather system of the limbic brain. We like to believe we decide based on a careful calculus of pros and cons. In truth, we often decide based on a single overarching question: how do I feel about this? The affect heuristic means our emotional impression, the affect, serves as a mental shortcut for complex judgments. We trust what feels familiar. We fear what feels complex. We desire what feels coherent. This is the realm of branding, of charisma, of aura.
It is why a speaker's calm, assured tone can make nonsense seem profound. The feeling becomes the proof. The counter-hack is metacognition, to feel the feeling, but to question its source. This feels right, but why? Is it the logic or the pleasant music, the warm lighting, the confident smile? You must audit your emotional climate. This leads us to a crucial and almost universal flaw in our social perception, a flaw that makes us feel perpetually exposed and perpetually misunderstood.
You walk into a room, nervous, convinced your anxiety is plastered across your face for all to see. This is the illusion of transparency. We overestimate how much our internal state, our nervousness, our guilt, our attraction is visible to others. Similarly, we believe we are better at detecting lies than we are. The hack is twofold. First, for yourself, understand the spotlight effect is a lie. They see far less than you fear. This knowledge grants calm, the true foundation of presence. Second, for reading others, do not trust your instinctual read of their transparency. Their nervous fidget might be excitement. Their calm might be terror under control. This illusion creates a chasm of misunderstanding, but there's a bridge across that chasm, built on a deep, ancient law of social physics. Across every human culture lies a universal rule, the rule of reciprocity. A gift, a concession, a piece of value received creates a psychic debt. The mind seeks equilibrium. It is a social gravity. This is more powerful than liking. You may despise someone, but if they do you a meaningful favor, the dissonance is agonizing. The reciprocity hack is not about cynical exchange. It's about initiating the cycle of social bonding. Give something of perceived value, time, attention, a genuine compliment, a small favor, without an immediate demand for return. But beware the dark pattern, the unsolicited favor followed by the crushing demand. The true use of this principle is to plant seeds, not traps, to build gardens, not minefields. Now, you have seen the levers, 7 principles that shape the invisible landscape of influence. But to see them clearly is to confront not a toolbox for control, but a profound and unsettling paradox. This is the central paradox. The very mechanisms that can be used to influence, to steer, to predict, are the same mechanisms that make genuine connection, empathy, and love possible. The lever of reciprocity is the foundation of community. The affect heuristic is the root of art and beauty. The need for consistency is the bedrock of integrity and trust. To see these levers is to stand at a crossroads. One path leads outward towards seeing others as systems to be navigated. This path leads to isolation, to a cold, lonely mastery where every smile is a data point, every relationship a strategic alliance. The fortress mind becomes a control room, and you its solitary occupant. The other path leads inward. It asks, if I am subject to these forces, what in me is not a reaction? Where is my agency? This path uses the knowledge not to control others, but to free yourself, to identify the anchors you didn't set, the consistencies you didn't choose, the frames you inherited. This is the Stoic and Buddhist ideal, awareness as liberation. You cannot stop the waves of influence, but you can learn not to be drowned by them. You can choose which levers to pull on yourself. So, we arrive at practical insights, not for outsmarting, but for navigating with integrity. 1. Audit your inputs. Regularly ask, what anchors have been set for me today?
By the news, by social media, by conversation? What frames are shaping my reality? Choose your information diet as carefully as your food. 2. Engineer your consistency. Make small, positive commitments to the person you wish to become. The identity cascade will follow. Tell yourself, I am a reader, and read a page. I am composed, and take one breath before reacting. 3. Lead with value, not extraction. In your interactions, be the first to offer genuine value, a useful thought, a sincere appreciation, a moment of true attention. Initiate the reciprocity cycle with no demand. You will build a network not of debts, but of mutual regard. This brings us to the unavoidable ethical tension. If you possess this knowledge, where does your responsibility begin? If you see a loved one trapped by a harmful consistency, by a toxic anchor they didn't choose, do you intervene? Is it ethical to use a frame to guide someone toward a healthier choice, even if that frame is a gentle manipulation? When does guidance become governance? When does influence become a theft of autonomy? There is no clean answer, only the question, forever echoing in the space between minds. It is the question that must accompany every lever you consider pulling. We invite you to reflect in the comments. In your own life, where do you draw the line between ethical influence and manipulation? Is the distinction in the action or the intent? We began with a wall, a fortress. We end with an eye, an organ that takes in light but also projects a world. You are both the watched and the watcher, the influenced and the influencer, the system and the one who contemplates it. The ultimate freedom is not immunity from influence. That is impossible. The ultimate freedom is to see the strings, to know which ones are tied to your limbs by culture, by trauma, by habit, and to know that with patient, deliberate effort, you can loosen some and tighten others. You can even tie your own. You are not just a player in the game. You are also, in a small, profound way, a designer of your own corner of the board. See clearly, choose carefully, act when you act, with a consciousness of the web that connects us all. Seek understanding.